Welcome. You're listening to My Magical Horse, the podcast, where we are getting curious about animal communication. I am your host, Jordan Banks, and if you are desiring a more magical connection with your own horse, you are in the right place. Join us as we rediscover our sense of wonder, experience the joy, and feel the magic that horses bring to our lives each and every day. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Now let's get started. Today, I am so excited to introduce Tara Davis of Unbridled Goddess. And I wanted to just start this episode by reading the statement on her beautiful webpage. And what she says is, unbridled is a state of mind, a way of thinking about our work with horses in a different light, a recognition of the horse as a willing participant in the relationship, an acknowledgement that without the horse's desire to engage, the partnership cannot truly flourish. Unbridled reignites the spark that fuels movement and connection, opening the path for the horse and human to engage in an authentically healthy way. And with that, I am so excited to introduce Tara. Thank you,
Oh,
Tara, for joining us today. I'm so
thank
excited to have
you.
you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So funny how people meet and how people connect. And I had seen you on Instagram, had no idea that I was ever going to meet you, to be honest. And you always had all these beautiful, lovely images of your horses and all the amazing things that you're doing with them. And then it was actually, you know what? Actually, the very first time I didn't meet you, but you were riding at a working equitation
Oh,
show down in
yeah.
Eugene, and I was scribing for the judge. And that's the first time I ever saw you. Like,
Oh,
I don't even know if I knew who you were prior to that, actually. I was probably found out about you after I saw you ride. But you did stand out to me because you were so quiet and kind with your horse. I mean,
oh,
it was beautiful.
thank
And
you. Appreciate that.
and I think you were on a, did you have a Palomino?
I did. Yeah, I had a little
Yeah.
quarter horse for a while.
Okay, so I think that's who you were riding. But
Yeah.
then later, after that, Celeste, well, I met you down. Did I meet you before? I met you before Elements because Celeste had you come up
Yeah.
for the clinic and we did
Yeah.
a
I came
positive
up to your
reinforcement
beautiful
clinic.
barn and met Ugo and
Yeah, and
yeah.
you helped me teach Ugo how to Spanish walk.
Yes, which is now
And
his favorite thing
it
ever.
is now, it is still his favorite thing. It is forever his favorite thing now.
So cute.
I love it and
So
he loves it.
adorable.
And it's actually been a really great way for us to engage together
Aw.
during a lot of his rehab and things that he's been going
Yeah.
through,
Yeah. High
which is
effort, low impact. Yeah.
and and he'll offer it. Like sometimes I don't ask for it and I'll be doing something and I'll be like, "Oh, you want to do that now? Okay."
So
And he's
cute.
so sweet. But then yeah, and then I went down to Elements of Connection and I got to actually watch you work.
Yeah.
Beyond, I guess I did watch you work when you were doing the clinic, but the clinic was interesting when you're a participant versus when you're just an auditor. And
Yeah.
so I think when I was a participant, you get really wrapped up into what you're doing, and in some ways, I think you miss things. And
Yeah.
I love it when you can go as an auditor because you can take everything in without feeling like you're on the spot or, everyone's watching you.
Totally.
And the one thing that I really, I think I even talked to you about it down at Elements, but you're very intentional with your words. Like I could tell that you were really, you think a lot about the words that you use, and because the words have so much meaning, they carry a lot of meaning. And
Hmm.
anyway, that's just one thing that I observed and I really love about you.
I appreciate it. I do have a passion for words and the words being what I'm trying to convey, like the meaning of the words actually conveying what I'm trying to put out there because I think it's so easy to misunderstand when there's so many different viewpoints and especially in the horse world where there's a million different ways to do things and so I think it is really really important for me personally to be really intentional with exactly what I'm saying so I can express it. Like I want to give it to the person that's receiving it as clearly as possible.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that about you. And on that note too, I mean, part of the having like the congruency with our horses is our words matching our intention and
Mhm.
what we're trying to communicate to them. So on that note, as I had mentioned, this podcast has a focus on animal communication, and I did want to dive a little deeper. I know you've been on a lot of different podcasts, and I want to maybe just take a little different angle at your story and see if we can talk and dive a little deeper into your relationship with animal communication and what that's looked like for you. Like, so I guess I'll just start with, do you feel like you could communicate with animals when you were young? Or is this something that has kind of developed? And here I am already just assuming that you do it because I just know that you must.
Oh my
But
gosh.
how did it look? Like, was it something that you kind of realized you could do later in life, or could you do it as a kid and then life happened and then you refound it again? Or I know the journey is different for everyone, but I'd love to if you want to just talk a little bit about your own journey as far as that goes.
Yeah, totally. Well, going back to when we got to spend so much time together at Elements of Connection, which was so beautiful. I'm sure as an auditor, you got to see during one of those sessions, there's a really poignant moment that was to me as a teacher, kind of marrying like right when I'm doing positive reinforcement work. It's like, you can understand positive reinforcement, you understand animal behavior, and you can kind of like bring those two things together. And then I had the unique opportunity in that time to have Shaylee, who is just has blown my whole perspective wide open with
Right.
animal communication. But we were working together in this session, and it was so interesting because from a behavior standpoint, I'm like, okay, this behavior that we're trying to work on, we just like kept hitting like a roadblock. And I'm like, okay, we'll break it down further. And it just like kept not quite working in a way that like the horse had been previously progressing really easily, but it was this one particular thing, and he was just kind of like having a hard time bridging to the next part of the behavior. And Shaylee was like, "I'm so sorry, I have to butt in right now," but like he and it was really interesting. I won't share like exactly what it was, but she had
Mm,
two really, really interesting points that were very specific to the horse's previous experiences
mm,
and asked me to just shift ever so slightly a sound that I was making and like kind of how I was holding my body should not, as a scientist, should not really have changed anything in terms of all of a sudden being a magic, switch. But it literally the horse was just like, okay, perfect, and smoothly went along the rest of the way. And it was such a powerful moment. And I was like, I remember being like, God, I hope everyone who was auditing could appreciate like how potent that was as a kind of like a sign. Like that was so like clinically relevant in the moment. And I think that's um, for me in my path with this. I am like totally like I'm a hippie, I believe in energy work and I really believe in intentionality and all this, but for a long time, I really kind of, I think honestly, growing up, I just never really thought of animal communication.
mm,
Um, I assumed that there were some people that could do it and there were some people that couldn't, and I just assumed I was in the latter category.
mm,
And I just never really thought about it. I never really put any, you know, I never tried. I was never like, I'm going to try to
mm,
communicate with them. And
mhm,
I'm actually kind of glad that I did because I think I was able to have authentic experiences that later on, looking back, I'm like, okay, in my understanding of how I communicate with animals now, can see that organically happening as a child,
Mm.
but I wasn't intentionally trying anything. And
Mm.
that I think has really been my experience. That, like, in a nutshell, is how I've experienced kind of coming to this understanding of how I personally experience communication with animals, very much from this like not trying kind of thing, and allowing it to be something that I experience, and it usually surprises me. So yeah,
Mm.
from a young age, that definitely was, looking back, I can see so many similar experiences, and yet never really thought of it as animal communication. And I think partly because there's so little separation between intuition and communication in the experience that I've been having with it, as I've kind of come to terms with it.
So it's like you look back now and realize you were communicating, you just didn't recognize it as that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was more so like the animals communicating with me, like where I'm like,
Mm.
these things that I just thought were almost like observations or kind of like thoughts that would pop up into my mind. And like, oh,
Can you think of a specific example of anything that stands out to you or?
um, being coming from like a competitive background,
Mm.
and uh being told like things that I had to do in order to kind of get to the next level, or to push my horses harder. And I always had really complicated horses. We could never
Mm.
afford like the, you know, push button show horses, or like the proven horses. So I always had kind of complex horses growing up, and the like emotions that would come up in me that didn't feel my own, and feelings of like extreme feelings of discomfort around being told to do certain things with them, that I think as a child, obviously, I think there's an element of it was like, I love this creature and this feels like it goes against my
Mm.
love for them. But I think looking back specifically, so much of it was like hearing from the horse, like feeling the horse's discomfort and feeling the horse's, expressions of like asking for help. And I think that that was a really big, uh, that's like the primary thing that, looking back, and like the feelings of almost like experiencing another being's emotions as a way
Hmm.
of communication, like that was really big for me. And I think that was a big thing that I experienced as a young girl, and didn't really put two and two together with that. Kind of
Yeah.
would either attribute it to like, anxiety, or just like, I'm making things up, or
Hmm.
I just need to be tougher, or this kind of thing. But yeah, I really feel like looking back that it was experiencing my horse's emotions and them trying to communicate through that.
Oh, interesting. So I just want to take a little pause because you had mentioned being a scientist. So actually, what is your background?
Well, maybe more of like a science background. I am not a scientist. Would love to be
Okay.
a scientist at some point. But as a behaviorist and someone
Oh,
who,
behaviorist. Yeah.
yeah.
On that note, actually, it was one of the podcasts, I think it was one with Amber I listened to a while back. And I know I had commented to you at the time, but I had listened to that podcast and you were talking all about this nervous system stuff. And at the time, I didn't know it. I was unaware of any of that at that time, but everything that you were saying, I resonated with it so much per how I just was intuitively working with horses. And then to hear you put like words and explain the things that were happening, it was kind of mind blowing for me because I was kind of like, whoa, I mean, there's like, yeah, there's like a science to this. Like I did not, I was not aware. I mean, now I've delved into a lot more of that, learning about the nervous system and all of those things. But
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time somebody ever talked about parasympathetic and sympathetic, and I'm like, wait, which one's which? Which one's which? Like, I mean, for the longest time, I couldn't remember which
It's
one was
okay.
which.
As a dyslexic person, I still have to be like, it's that one. No, it's actually that one.
Yeah, wow. So, and then you had a background in dressage, or what did your background look like as far as competing, and you said that you had kind of a competitive background. How old were you
Yeah.
when you started riding, and what did that look like?
I mean, the first time I was put on a horse, I was 6 months old and pretty much never got off the back of a horse.
Okay.
My mom is a horse person, and when she was pregnant with me, she'd go for rides, and when she gave birth to me, she would like lunge her horse with me in the little pack behind her, and that was like one of the ways that I would go to sleep. And so I think you know, from even before birth, I've been connected with horses, and I've been really lucky to have family that has supported that even, outside of obviously horses are such an expensive sport, and that they, encouraged me to pursue it however I needed to, you
Mm,
know, learning how to work my way through lessons and learning from other people. So yeah, I kind of dabbled in lots of things growing up, did some eventing, did some jumpers, failed miserably at hunters, um, and then had some really bad accidents, and then ended up kind of deciding I wanted to stick with dressage.
mhm.
And yeah, I love dressage. I've always loved dressage. Um, and I just, I always wanted what I imagined dressage was supposed to be, and then never really felt it growing up. I always felt like there just was some disconnect there, and it felt not great. Um,
Mm,
and being in the competition world and having complex horses or horses that didn't kind of like meet the mold that is like your typical successful horse in dressage, or your typical successful horse in, well, dressage primarily, even in
yeah.
eventing. But
And
yeah.
but you said like so like kind of like your statement on your website. I mean, what I see now is so you've somehow shifted into this more really the art of it and the relationship of it, right?
Hmm.
And these horses are they have to be a willing participant in this to really create the beauty that you're after. How did that, how long did you feel like you rode traditional dressage before you realized you need to make the shift? And we can talk a little bit about your mare as well. But yeah, how did that come? Did that shift come specifically because of that mare, or had you already kind of been making the shift?
Well, I had actually I had actually quit horses altogether, sold everything that every horse item that I had, and retired my Oldenburg gelding. I retired him when I think I was 19, maybe
Mm,
18. I
okay.
think I was 19. And I kind of like swore off of horses. I had gotten to work at a really amazing facility that was, well, I don't even know if you call it a facility. I got to work in an amazing program that had, a couple hundred acres, and their horses were in herds and allowed to roam over the acreage. And, it was such a beautiful experience, and I'd never gotten to see horses in that way before. And
Mm.
like my boss on the first day put me up on one of the horses bareback and was just like, "Off you go! Like you're gonna spend time with the herd. Go on." And
Really? Like no bridle or anything, or
I think she had a halter and a lead rope on one side, and she was just like, "Don't do anything. Just sit on him and just observe the herd." And it was the first
wow.
time, I'd been around horses my entire life. Um, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced horses in that way. My version of horses had always been this kind of like segmented, regimented, like the horses are in the box, each horse is in a box, and you take the horse and you
Mhm.
do the thing. And this was the first time I'd ever seen them kind of in a natural environment, and experiencing them as a herd and the dynamic they had, and how they just felt so different than any horse that I'd ever seen. It felt so different being out there compared to any barn that I had been at before. And there was a little bit of crossover. I think there was like 2 or 3 months of crossover where I still had my Oldenburg and was kind of
Mhm.
like I'd ride him at this barn where he was in, like a 12 by 48 or something like that run and would get like an hour of turnout a day in like a 40 by 40 zone by himself without being able to see other horses and just seeing how unhappy he was. And of course, looking back now, I'm like, I could have done so much for him, but I was just like, he's so unhappy and I don't know I can't do this. I don't have a couple hundred acres and I don't have a bunch of horses. I can't do this. So I retired him and he's about to live a lovely retirement. But yeah, it was just this like kind of worlds coming together and then worked there for like a year and loved it and then ended up leaving that area. I left that town and was like, well, I guess that's it. Like until and unless I ever get, acreage, which was that was my goal when I ended up settling up here was to, find acreage and like have a horse that I just go and like ride the trails with. Like that was kind of the only thing I saw horse like it was the only thing I saw of horses that were enjoying themselves, right? My only experience of horses that were enjoying themselves were these horses that just got to roam around and I could take them out and I could ride them on the trails and like exercise them and do some training out on the trails, but really like it's mostly just like cruising along and covering ground and just connecting with them in that way. So I was like, well, that's what I want if I'm ever going to get back to horses again. I don't ever want to I don't ever need an arena and I don't ever want to, you
Mm,
know, work horses in that way again. Because I just didn't know that there was any way of combining those two things, like to have horses that were
mm.
regulated and balanced and had their needs met and enjoyed the work, enjoyed the partnership. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up here. And
And you're in Northern California, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
up in Humboldt.
And sorry, I'm kind of jumping around.
No worries.
And I know I don't want to like completely redo other podcasts because people can listen to your other podcasts that are super, informative about your whole journey. But when do you feel like you started to hear the horses speaking to you? Or I mean, did that happen organically, or was that after you met like Shaylee or other animal communicators, or what did that look like for you?
I mean, Shaylee was definitely speaking with Shaylee, and gosh, it wasn't even that long ago. Probably like 4, maybe 5 years ago was when I first connected with Shaylee.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely like the first time I was like, oh, this is really real. Like there's no deny, like it is physically impossible that she could have known this. But prior to that, again, like I said, looking back, I think there was a lot of times where I was experiencing I think animal communication is very personal to each person, right? Like, and I think
Mm,
that there's some level of being able to kind of hone it and develop it as with any form of communication. But for me personally, again, like a lot of it is like sensation and a lot of it is, experiencing emotion and experiencing, thoughts that kind of just like pop into my mind. I don't have as much of a like I feel like I haven't developed the other direction yet, like to be able to talk to them. But I do think that my mare Misa was she was kind of my first foray really into the level of connectedness that a horse can have with a person. And
mm,
she was so sensitive and she was really the first horse that I realized, they can sense your intention. They can sense your emotions, even if you're just standing there, like not doing anything. They can sense exactly what is going on within your body. And, what I love about this whole thing, about, this kind of a conversation is it's like one of my little taglines is like I try to meet at the crossroads of science and spirituality because
mm,
I really think that spiritual and like kind of otherworldly experiences is just stuff that hasn't been able to be scientifically explained yet. But I do think that there is a lot of scientific explanation, like you were saying, of like you hear these things and you intuitively do them, and then you're like, wow, there's a whole science that supports this. I think
right.
that similarly with the animal communication, I was looking with Misa, I was looking at it from very much like a
Mm,
behavioral kind of perspective obviously very much informed by like energy work. You know, my dad did Tai Chi with me like when I was really
Oh.
little. So like I definitely felt like there's like a flow of energy beyond, things that can be seen that I had always believed in. And Misa was really so sensitive, and I had to kind of develop a mastery within myself of my emotions and my intention and how I spoke with her with my emotions and my intention. And so for me, I think she was the first horse that really showed me that like it didn't take me trying to speak to her, but I did have to have a conversation with her, with my energy, with, how I was thinking about things, what I was
Mm.
thinking about, how I was
Mhm.
thinking about it, how I felt about it, how I really felt in my core, and being honest with myself. And that was really the first time that I realized the depth to which horses could feel that and with which I could, communicate with them. And so for me, I was always kind of looking for, scientific explanations for all of this, and I like stumbled across mirror neurons, and like I was like, oh, this explains so much of it because, we're able to kind of express almost like we're almost able to like give an imprint of something that we're experiencing to another being. And I mean, I really, as I've kind of dived down this road, meeting Shaylee and then kind of like realizing that there was more to it, that still have to believe that there is a huge crossover there of like being able to, like, we have science that tells us that we're able to communicate with like the tiniest, most subtle communications of our body. And like, it's sort of like that concept of a flat circle can't conceptualize a sphere.
Mm.
And, if you are in one dimension, you can't even conceive of the notion of an additional dimension. And obviously, we're humans, so like we can sort of
Mhm.
postulate and like hypothesize about it. But like in terms of communication, I think there's dimensions of communication that could be scientifically explained that we can't even begin to explain or try to hypothesize on because we're a flat circle and the next level is a sphere. Like we just can't even conceive of it yet.
But we're kind of starting to gain a little bit of ground, I
Yeah.
think, because I
Yeah, we
feel
are.
like these conversations are, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just the world that the people that I'm surrounding myself in, but I feel like there's definitely more openness to talk about this stuff than there was when I was
Yeah.
growing up, that's
Oh
for
gosh,
sure.
yeah.
You
Totally.
know?
Even compared to like 10 years ago, I feel like there's a huge shift. And,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why that is, but I think that there's definitely, I think over time there will be like more and more scientific explanations for all of this because it definitely is happening. It's kind of, I mean, it's undeniable. Even
Yeah.
from someone like I'm naturally a pretty skeptical person, and like I can't deny it. It is, and it's it's really been cool to experience that and kind of dive down that road.
Yeah, I feel like I was on the kind of same as you, was like, well, yeah, I kind of think it could be real, but I'm not really sure if I believe in it. And then it was like, yeah, meeting Shaylee. I think it was definitely at Elements of Connection that after that clinic and watching real time the
Yeah,
things that she was able to interject into the scenario and seeing how it really did shift what was happening because of her input of what
yeah,
she said the horse needed or what the horse was telling her
yeah,
was yeah, it was really hard to deny it after witnessing that. And I think in a way, like I kind of went through like maybe little waves of like I believe in it, and, oh, I don't know, maybe it's or and not definitely not understanding the depth of how much information an animal communicator can actually get.
yeah,
And probably because that's gonna that's gonna vary depending on how in tune somebody is and what
yeah,
their skill level is. but to see firsthand that, wow, I mean, the depth of information that a really skilled animal communicator like Shaylee, who this is what they do, the amount of things they can pull forward and what they can help
Hmm.
facilitate with the human equine partnership, but not just horses, all animals. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still mesmerized by it all, and I know that if I spent more time studying it or meditating or doing the things, I could get better at it too. But I think for me, a lot of it has been realizing, like you said, that I've been doing it all this time
Yeah.
and not owning it or not believing it. And now in retrospect, now that I do believe in it, going back and going, oh wow, like yeah, my horses were telling me things. They were trying to
Yeah.
guide me to things. And maybe even us kind of opening up our minds to listening, like
Hmm.
to actually trying to hear what they're trying to communicate with us in the language that they can. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
which is a lot of
Absolutely.
times their behavior and the things that they're doing that maybe we don't want them to do, right? Because they're trying to get our attention and they're trying to communicate it to us in however they think they can get the message across to
Yeah.
us. But how many horses also kind of get written off as being an asshole or a shithead or, all those things
Yeah.
because the human isn't picking up on whatever the message is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
so many of them for sure.
I guess in that respect, the animal communicator can be really valuable if the person's open to going down that path and listening to that.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I think that in particular is actually a really interesting concept. The as a behaviorist going like,
Mm,
behavior is communication.
right.
And we can look at a horse's behavior and be like, they are trying to communicate something. And it's, our job to intuit or to, observe and discern what that is. Um, and yet, some people and nowadays there's starting to be more information out there on like, if your horse is behaving a certain way, like it's, they're not just being an asshole. They're not just doing it because they want to make your life difficult. And yet there's still so many persisting beliefs because they have been so deeply tied into horsemanship in general, these kind of beliefs about how horses are, how horses behave, or, you know, in essence, like choosing not to believe the horse when they're trying to communicate with
Mm,
you is kind of ingrained into equine
hmm
society. And it takes a lot of effort to undo that. However, the interesting thing has been, I have observed people who are like quite resistant to like a trainer telling them like, oh, I think your horse, I think your horse's saddle isn't fit, or I think your horse doesn't like,
mm,
whatever it is, like whether they're not doing well on this particular feed, or, they don't like jumping or whatever it is. People will sometimes be like really resistant to that. And
mm,
yet, if an animal communicator tells them that, they're so much more open to it because it's this thing that they don't understand versus this kind of like, you know, it can be a little hard to accept that these behaviors that maybe have come up in previous horses in the past that have gone unnoticed or unlistened to, it can be a lot emotionally to recognize. I think, like for a lot of people, it can be really hard, almost like if you accept that this is the truth because of this behavior, then you have
mm,
to accept a lot of uncomfortable truths prior to that. However, sometimes people will be more open to animal communicator because it's almost this like it's this other thing. It's not, the horse swishing its tail a lot when you put your right leg on. It's not, the horse is consistently refusing jumps when they hadn't been prior. It's this person who has the skill that we don't have, in our understanding of it, or in this person's
yeah.
understanding of it, that is saying something that is unique to this horse. And I think a lot of times people can be more open to that than they are to, a scientific explanation of the behavior
Mm,
because, yeah, it can be kind of uncomfortable. Whereas, if someone just says, this is how I feel, And the horse is just saying, this is how I feel through the medium of an animal communicator. It's a little easier to swallow.
Well, and also when you have a communicator that can, like, say they say something, and then you're like, oh, yeah, my
Mhm.
horse does kick out every time I put my right leg on. And then it's almost like it's reassuring
Yeah.
that the communicator is, like, when you can kind of relate something that you are experiencing in real life, and then the communicator pulls it up, and you're like, oh. And I don't know, somehow they kind of make sense of it, help
Yeah.
you make more sense of it or something.
Agree.
But, interesting. Um, I wanted to talk, you had mentioned in the interview you did with Felicity, that basically there's two things that you said. You talked about, I'm going to say both these things and then you can kind of expound on them if you'd like. But you talked about the circle of healing the horse and healing the human. And
Mhm.
I've kind of been on this path myself with my horses. It's kind of what pulled me into going to Elements of Connection and opening
Mhm.
myself up to this kind of different way, was really my relationship with Ugo and all the injuries and things that he had
Yeah.
been navigating. And we're still navigating stuff, but I've seen that there's a greater purpose to our journey of why. I mean, I don't know. Everything happens, they say, the way it's meant to, even though sometimes it's hard to metabolize that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
like, but all the things that you experience lead you to where you're meant to be. And I can
Mhm.
see now that my journey with him has been really rich with, like, how long I was ignoring things that, yeah, maybe his body was telling me because I just didn't know any different. I
Yeah.
didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I just knew, what the traditional way of training was telling me, and I was gonna push through it or make it happen. And then my horse got injured, and now I'm on a whole nother journey that I wish I would have known
Yeah.
well before it happened, believe
Right.
me.
Yeah.
But it's taken me down some pretty deep paths of like self-discovery and really self-observation of, wow, do I want to work with horses in that way anymore? And you know, between us and everyone else listening, um, um, it's been a little bit of I think there's a little bit of an ego death because you have these grand dreams of, oh, I want to compete and earn my silver and my gold medal, and oh, I want to get my horse to Grand Prix, and ooh, I want to, yeah, someday. I mean, I know so many people have this dream of riding the Olympics someday. And now I'm to this place now where I'm like, can you get to that level? Is it possible to get to that level while honoring what the horse needs and not pushing them so hard? And I'm sure you're going to have your own take on this, but my take has been, I think that there are horses that probably do want to, like, just like there's athletes who do want to push themselves to the extreme, because that's what they want. The horses, I think that maybe, I don't know, I can't say for sure, like the ones that make it there, because I'm sure there's ones that make it there that maybe don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
the ones that maybe make it there and they make it there in a good way are maybe those athletes that they do want to do that.
Yeah.
Um, Xena, for instance, has told animal communicators that she loves going to competitions and she loves doing all these things.
Oh.
Like she loves that.
Yeah.
Where Ugo isn't so keen on it, yet he's the one that I was taking and really
Mm.
trying to do all these things with, in the dressage realm, because he was the more talented, the more, he had the body and the movement and
Yeah.
he had all the physicality to
Totally.
do it, but maybe mentally he wasn't prepared to be there. And that's taken us on our own journey. But anyway, I'm going back to this part of like, yeah, I want to know, like, does this mean that I'm on this path now that I can never achieve these dreams of, competition or Like, do I need, you know what I mean? Like, I'm on this weird ego
Yeah.
death of like, does this mean I can't do that anymore? Or is there a way to do it and still honor the horse? Or I know that you've done a little bit of competition still. So what does that look like in your world? I mean, how do you balance it all? And how do you know when to push and when not to push? And
Yeah.
so that you actually make progress. I mean, that's the biggest thing I see a lot of times is that people that want to go on this path don't push enough to make progress. I'm just spouting out a lot of stuff because I'm in the midst of this whole
Yeah.
jumble in my head of how to
Yeah.
make sense of it all. And is it possible to still compete with a horse like Xena that says she likes it? But how do we navigate that for everybody who has different horses that may or may not be on the same path?
Yeah.
Any input? Any wisdom,
Oh my
advice?
gosh. I mean, I think it is a never-ending journey, truly. I mean, you saw me, or like the first time you saw me was kind of at the beginning of that. Like I had gone through this phase with Misa, and I think that was probably like four, maybe like 3 or 4 years into having Misa, probably three, I think. And wanting to kind of explore with another horse who was game to see like, okay, is there a way to go like bitless and to do competition in a different way? And, kind of dipped my toes into it, really enjoyed that. But one of the biggest things that I found for that and to bring it back to like the circle of healing horses and healing humans and like the interconnectedness that happens there, which is it will forever be a like working with the horse, working with the person, working with the horse, working with the person, and how each layer that we pull back, of healing and growing with our horses unlocks new layers for us and new revelations and new realizations about like, you know, who we are and what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the truth behind those things. And I think that will forever be a cycle. And I think that's part of what's so beautiful with the horses. I went from with never wanting to work with horses again, and then working with Misa, and then her telling me how much she loved to dance. She loved
Mm,
dressage. I would never was able to do it under saddle. She
mm,
told me very clearly, even though she would let me on her back, she told me very clearly that that was not something she was ever comfortable with. Come to find out later, she has severe ECBM.
mm.
And so
And you say
when
she tells you, but this is like not communicating like animal communication, but she tells you with her behavior and her
No,
body, or did
this
she tell
was
you?
fully, I mean, I had again because this is all like I had done everything with her with positive reinforcement, full like
Okay.
everything was she got to opt in. She had
Mm,
start signals, stop signals. And I would be like working with her on the ground, and she would, if we got close enough to a mounting block, she would like trot over to the mounting block and like line her back up and be like, hop on. And I would, get on, and she would try so hard for me. And I think this was
mm.
because she knew that I really like, she knew that I would like be doing Liberty with her, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Like,
I want to get
it's
on you.
so beautiful. I want to ride you. And I never really like said that to her, I was never like, I really want to work on this. But I would like, I know I was just broadcasting it to her. And so she would like try so hard for me. So from a behavior standpoint, she's like green lights, green lights, green lights. And she would never engage in the stop signal before
Mm,
I could feel her starting to get too close to her threshold emotionally.
mm,
And so I just, from a behavior standpoint, I was like, she can't safely, I can't safely expect her to engage in the stop signal when she pushes herself so far and won't engage until she's so far past that. And like it was safe, like she was always pretty safe about it, but like I knew that there was, an I knew that there was an opportunity for extreme explosiveness where it was because she would have these like episodes where she would just be so terrified, and I think a lot of it was pain. I think she had some potentially some like sight
mm,
like was missing some, her eyesight wasn't 100% in some places, and then I think when she'd get really afraid then she would kind of go into these like blind panics. And, there
You're
definitely were.
saying that she wouldn't stop because she was trying to please you
Yeah, because I think she
until
would.
it got past too far, and then it was like, oh shit.
Yeah, and she never hit the oh shit because I would be like, I can
You
see
could
it's
sense
not
it.
going well.
Mm.
But I could feel, whenever I would think about riding her, I would feel this like, no, no, I can't.
Mm.
And then I would be, I would experience this like even if I was like up, if I was just up on a hill that was slightly above her, like, and we were out in the forest or something, if I was stepping over a log, she would like catch me as I was like any bit higher than her and would like line up to like let me on her back. And
But
I
you were still feeling a no?
I wouldn't feel a no
Or
in those moments. Like I would
mm,
be like, I know the pattern, but it was so
mm,
interesting because I would think of, I would experience that and I'd be like, okay, well maybe I should start putting together like a training plan for her and like ride her and, see if we can work through these triggers that she has. And it would just be this like, I can't, like, no, this like fear, this instability, this like, um, yeah, like total ungroundedness. And, looking back now, knowing what was going on within her body and like how much instability was going on there. Like, of course, adding a rider on top of that would have been really a lot. It would have probably been pretty painful for her too. So,
mhm.
um, but yeah, that was really interesting. I don't even know how we got onto that topic, but oh,
Uh, oh,
competing and so
yeah, sorry.
no worries. So like had this whole experience with her and was like, I thought um I would just see where it took me with her. Like see
Mm,
where she like because it was so autonomy based because I couldn't do anything that she didn't want to do. Um I was like, well, we'll probably hit a limit of how much we can grow or what we can do on the ground. And she just would like blow that limit away every single time. I mean, the
mm,
capacity for high level, intense, difficult, training that she could do on the ground with
mm,
nothing for me to kind of coerce her into it. It's just her learning how to connect deeper in her body and to do these movements that made her feel so good and made her feel so powerful. And so getting to experience that, I'm like, okay, well, she's had a lot of trauma. She came from a really traumatic background. So if it's possible for a horse like her to fall deeply in love with these like movements that I thought that no horse would ever want to do. Like I'm like,
mm.
oh, looking back, I thought Piaffe was like so cruel because like what horse would ever want to do that? And then I'm like horse after horse after horse is like, this is the coolest thing ever. I love this, like learning how to do it at Liberty.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well if I had a horse that was not traumatized, maybe we could go through the levels and
Mm,
and compete. And then trying to do that and realizing like, oh man, I have a lot more work to do because I get into the arena and it's like these little places where you have a decision to either push or to honor this kind of path that you're going on. And it is so difficult to to choose that. It takes a lot of work. So I think, you know, I like really dialed it back and was like, okay, I need to work on some things. I got to do some really cool experimental shows with some horses who were very much opted in physically, very much opted in mentally, opted in emotionally. Like they were in it. They were happy to be there. They wanted to do this with me. It felt good for them. And that was incredible. And, and then I've also had experiences with these horses who in at home, it was incredible and everything felt really good, but they weren't capable of taking it to the shows.
mm,
And again, like having to navigate that feeling of like when you have like worked so hard to develop all this stuff, to then not want to go and be like, look at what I've done. And I think that a lot of what this journey has been, a lot of what the horses have taught me is like what they want in this is they want you to meet them where they're at. And that
Mm.
means if they're saying they want to do this, you honor that. If there's a horse that is like, I have Canelo out here who, if I don't let him tell me what he wants to do, if I don't honor, he's like, let's work. I want to do cool shit. I want to like, he loves to do what he feels is epic shit. Like, he
Too
wants to
epic
be this
shit.
like badass, intense, super incredible athlete. And that is his, like, he loves that. And if I don't do that, he's upset. He is not being heard. He is not being honored.
Mm.
And that he's the horse. I mean, I've never met a horse that does it to this level, but he's really who has taught me, like, when I feel like something in my mind is unfair, or like not even unfair, but just like when you have these ideas of like what is the best thing for this horse, whether it's um I want to train in this methodology, or whether it's I want to um really anything, whatever it is that you have in mind of what is best for this horse. If the horse is telling you that they want more of something or less of something, that like it's about honoring that. So if you have a horse that says, I want to go to the next level, I want you to learn how to meet me in growth, which is what Canelo has been doing for me, because I, like you, in this experience of being like, okay, well, I don't want to push anything ever then. I don't want to push for anything. And for him, he has been calling me to meet him and grow with him,
Mm.
and that being passive completely, obviously you're not like pushing them like crazy, but that in order to honor that desire that they have, you have to be willing to grow with them. You have to be willing to make friends with that side of you that is kind of can be fearful when you come from a competition background, or when you have pushed
Mhm.
horses too far in your past, right? Like, I'm sure you experience feelings of guilt looking back and going like, oh my God, I didn't hear them. I wasn't listening to them. I shouldn't have done that. And I think one
Mhm.
of the things that's incredible about learning and leaning into being able to communicate with your animal is being able to go, okay, not only are we partners by using ethical training practices, but also we're partners in communication. I can hear you when you need me to make an adjustment. I can hear you when you say, I actually don't want to do this anymore. I can hear you
Mm.
when you say, I want to go show. And then I can also hear you when you say, but that's too far for me. Like, so it's really a
Mhm.
matter of, I think we can sometimes get into the story of like, what our horse, my horse is this.
Mhm.
And I think communication allows us to give them so much more nuance and depth, because every day is so different. There can be days where a horse would be like, or even period seasons of their life where a horse would be like, I would love to go and exhibit with you. I would love to go and show off and like feel so good in my body. And then there are seasons where they want to be at home and practice with you in like the sacred intimacy of your own space, and being able to listen to that and honor that. And that is hard to do when you start to delve into the competition world of like, okay, we have this show, we have to qualify for this thing.
Mhm.
And, if I want to do this show, then I have to travel this far. So I need to make sure that my horse is definitely going to do the thing. Because if I'm traveling 8 hours away, I want to make sure, all these different things, you have to let go of it all. You have to let go
Mhm.
of it all and be willing to discern over time. So, it's so fluid, and I think that there's an inherent difficulty with how do we incorporate that, the fluidity and the input from our horses with this kind of like rigid human-centric competition side of things. I think there's a way to do it. I really do. I personally don't think I'm the person to do it. I really don't. I think living in the middle of nowhere also makes it really difficult. But like I see, I watch Alexis Martin Vague and her horse, who she, you know, she has trained through from the very beginning all the way through to Grand Prix.
Mm,
And she talks about, I won't speak for her experience, but reading recently how she balances a horse that is like this beautiful emotional being, and how sometimes the competition environment is not conducive to the level of like flow that they usually have, and how she can man
mm,
how she works to manage that, and how she works to honor her horse that she's been practicing honoring for her entire life. And that shifting of expectations, because you understand that
mm,
you're working with this dynamic being. Anyone who's interested in this, how do you
yeah.
compete and have this like ethical, deeper level of connection with your horse. Alexis Martin Vague is incredible, and her watching her journey, she's so eloquent and speaks deeply about that. So highly recommend seeing
Okay.
her. But I see, I see her doing it, and I'm like, okay, I think it could be done. I
Yeah.
think it's possible to do it, but it might require being a little bit creative. Like if I remember correctly, she travels to the shows, maybe doesn't always stay overnight.
Mm,
Like, yeah, if it's easier for the person to just go and arrive and have the horse there for 5 days, but the horse is like telling you, I don't feel comfortable outside of my environment for extended periods of time without my herd, without my lifestyle.
yeah.
It's like, how can we make adjustments to this, again, this very human-centric world, that competition world, and get creative about ways that we can hear our horses, see if we can find a little bit of a common ground or a compromise, or see if we can make it work for our horses, what they're communicating, what they need. Or if we need to go, oh, we got a scratch right now because,
Yeah.
this horse is
And
telling me that she can't do it.
I think that because of the nature of competition and how much money
Yeah.
that it costs to go, I think that's where there could be a real disconnect because especially like it's one thing if you are taking your own personal horse and you
Yeah.
decide it's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
scratch. I know
Totally.
it's on me. It's worth the money just to
Yeah.
scratch. It's a whole nother thing if you're trying to do that with client horses and they're paying you and then they're like,
Yeah.
what? I mean, like,
Totally.
just looking at the whole grand scheme of how many horses go to competitions that are, being trained and prepared by someone who doesn't actually own them.
Yeah.
There's that piece. And then there's also, yeah, that piece of like just to get stronger in general, just for like a person to work out and get stronger, you are gonna hit some discomfort in order to build that muscle. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is the tricky thing with horses and just even with training. And I think that's where though your intuition is what people are missing. Like
Yeah.
if they could get in tune with their intuition and they could hear the horse, then they would
Yeah.
know when it's okay to push or when it's not okay to push.
Yeah.
And I say this now in retrospect, looking back at I haven't gone to any horse shows since COVID hit, but prior to COVID, I was very active in going to a lot of horse shows and taking
Yeah.
students to shows and dressage shows and working equitation shows. And I look at it now, like if I can look back at it now and I can think, wow, when I'm at home training, like you say, I'm really particular about like especially with my horses. I try to train when nobody's around because I do not want people talking to me because I need to be so engaged and connected with my horse and people in general in most barn worlds are not thinking about that. They
Hmm.
just see you and they think they can start talking to you
Yeah.
with like little even awareness of maybe what you're even doing in the
Yeah.
arena. And that can be really distracting, especially even with like a horse that's like a more dangerous horse that like I have one particular horse in training and he's got a lot of shit about him. And it's like I very specifically wait till people are not there
Yeah.
because I cannot risk being distracted
Yeah.
by somebody talking to me and me losing my attention on him even for a split second because I
Mm.
need to be 100% focused on him.
Yeah.
But saying all this to say is what I realize is that I train that way at home. And then I realized that, like, I think back about when I go to competitions or would go to competitions. I mean, not to say that I wasn't connected with my horse, but I think that there was just so much outside stimulus
Totally.
that even I was like riding in a more, I don't, mechanical is not the right word, but I just wasn't in as in
Phoning it in a little bit,
tune.
right? Like just the tiniest bit, because you have to be thinking about all these other horses that are like warming up around you and
Ah,
their issues, because oftentimes it's like, there might be like some really hot horses in the warm up arena that you're wanting to
yeah.
make sure that you're giving them space, and you're having to think about all these other things.
It
And the other
takes your
thing,
focus
it
off
takes your
of.
focus. And here's the interesting thing, which is, we talk about like preparing our horses for that, right? Like, oh, you have to prepare your horse, make sure they're socialized, make sure they're used to like, yeah, other horses being in the arena and all this stuff. But then we don't usually talk about the connection level between horse and like how can
Mhm,
we as humans maintain that level of connection that we're experiencing when we are preparing, right? When we are going through this beautiful experience of, working with our horses and slowly, gently experiencing growth and exploring what's possible. And we have, like you said, you do it after hours or you do it when you're by yourself and it's this like sacred space and it's so beautiful. And that
exactly.
becomes what your horse and you are accustomed to.
Right.
That becomes your normal.
Hmm.
How do we then practice bringing the level of connection for both our horse and ourselves? Because, some horses are less bothered by outside stimulus. Some
Hmm.
horses are more out bothered by outside some stimulus. Some people are less bothered by outside stimulus. Some people are more bothered by outside stimulus.
I
So
was just gonna say the people too, because I'm one of those people that I do not like outside stimulus. Like,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been finding over the last I've been working on this exact thing within myself quite a lot lately because I struggle to meet my horse to the level of depth that I do when I am alone, when
Hmm.
anything else is around, whether it's a video camera, whether it's, taking
Mm.
a Zoom lesson, whether it's a clinic, whether it's, an instructor coming in and working with me, all of a sudden I'm like, I'm down to like 30% of my capacity to connect. And let me tell you, my horse is like, ahem, mother. Excuse me, you want me to do what? You want me to do anything that you usually ask me of or ask of me when you're operating at 30%? Guess what? You're only going to get 30%. So, and that's
Yeah.
been a really, really huge practice that I've had to go, okay, how do I hold space for, speaking with another person or like being perceived? For me personally, being perceived is like a difficult thing.
Mm.
And it just completely ungrounds me.
Mm.
And then I no longer have that connection with the horse that I have set the precedent for. If I've set this precedent of like, okay, I'm listening to you deeply, we're, deeply in tuned physically and emotionally and on this like communication level, and then, someone shows up and I'm like, "Blah," totally fall
Yeah.
apart. And it's really, that's something that I've been working on for a long time. And I think it will be a forever practice. And it's been something that it's like a meditation, right? It's how
Hmm.
do you manage to achieve the level of almost like Zen interconnectedness? It's like prayer-like interconnectedness. How do you manage to maintain that in the face of other stimulus? And so, that's been something that I've been working on a ton lately, making progress, but I think it will be a forever thing. I think that it'll be something that I'll be working on my entire life and seeing a change in my horse as well of like how much deeper he like if I open the door for that connection, he's like, boom, I'll meet you right there. But if
Hmm.
I can't meet him, he won't carry me. Now, there are some horses, like you said, there are some horses that are, operate that want to do the thing so badly that they will carry you. that they
Hmm.
will go, okay, well, my rider's, at 15% capacity, but I'm still going to do the thing. And I think that's just, again, looking at each horse as an individual, that there are some that have way more capacity for that kind of thing. And there are some that have a very high demand for their person being there with them, matching equally. And I think just part of this whole, the beauty of being able to incorporate communication with your horse into all of the other things we do, right? All of our understanding of biomechanics, all of our understanding of body work, posture, training, dressage, like everything that we're working on, adding in communication so that we can tailor how we're approaching everything at all times. We're always able to tailor it to the horse. We're always able to go, okay, I just got that input. Like I rode with Canelo for ages by myself and was like, oh my God, everything's so wonderful and amazing. And then, would have a clinic or have a lesson and be like, oh, why does everything fall apart? I guess I need to work on, him being able to manage this sort of stuff. And it took like quite a while for me to be able to be like, oh, he's like, hey, hey, this is you. Like, you need to work on this. And it took me a while to hear that. But,
Yeah.
being able to hear it and be like, oh, okay, yes, you're right, I got it. And then be able to see the results happen so much faster because you're taking that feedback from the horse instead of, like what I did for so long and going like, oh, behaviorist brain, and I'm gonna work on training out this problem, like I'm gonna work on training him to be able to have a higher resilience level. Whereas I could
Hmm.
have trained that for years and I wouldn't have gotten as far as if I had, when I eventually realized, oh my gosh, I need to work on this within myself. And then suddenly seeing those changes, it's just like that session with Shaylee at Elements of Connection, where I'm like trying to change all the different training approaches for this horse, and then hearing what the horse was saying, making a small adjustment, and then all of a sudden it's easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking back to the clinic riding, and I kind of am laughing at myself because I would ride in these clinics, and yeah, like sometimes like just feel like I would get so focused on what the instructor or the clinician was telling me that it's like I was forgetting to do
Mhm.
all the things I knew how to do.
Yes,
And then I'm just
totally.
like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even like, why am I not even riding I mean, it wasn't always like that, but you know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
where
I
you're just
know
trying
exactly the
to,
feeling.
you get so honed in on them and then you're like, shit, what am I doing over here?
Yeah.
I need to tune in and ride my horse. But, and even I was thinking back to competition though, I think one thing I did notice about, I did learn a certain level of just blocking everything
Yeah.
out. And literally to the point where I didn't even want people talking to me. When I say people, I mean like my people that came with me is
Yeah.
like, and they would joke because I would be like, don't talk to me right now.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I
But
can't talk to you right now.
how many people are like that? I mean, if you go into the competition world, there are so many people like that have kind of rituals like that where it's like they have to intentionally block things out. And sometimes I think it's almost easier in a show because you're by yourself, right? You're out there and
Yeah.
it's just you and it's just the horse. Sometimes it's easier in a show than it is in a clinic because
Yeah, because
when
you're
you're in
not
a
ha being
show,
asked to interact with somebody. Yeah.
yeah, you're just in there. And if you can get into that zone, of course, there are times where you don't. Like, there's been so many
Yeah.
dressage tests where I'm like, I get to the end and I salute and I'm like, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
I was not here whatsoever. I was on a different plane. My horse is like, excuse me, where were you? But then there are those other ones where you have, and I'm sure you've experienced it, where you go into the ring and it's just like magic, right? Where it's
Yeah.
just fluid and everything flows. And I really think the difference between those two is that interconnectedness. So
Yeah.
I want to believe that for someone out there that it is totally possible and could actually make your competition experience that much more powerful and incredible to add communication and this sort of level of understanding with our horses and this call to deepen our own connection with ourselves as well as how we connect with our horses, right? Which are both completely intertwined. Um,
Yeah. So true.
I think that there's a possibility that, if you have a horse that's on board and you're willing to do the work and you have that ability to be fluid and flexible as much as it might hurt financially to do. I think that there's a possibility that it could really make for a beautiful connection and a beautiful experience, possibly more so than, if we didn't have this level of understanding. But yeah, I
Hmm.
think it takes a lot of work, but anything good, anything worth having takes a lot of work, I think.
Yeah. I love that you and I are on the same page and that you relate to all the things that I'm saying though.
Yes,
Like, okay, it's
totally.
not just me. Okay, that's
No,
good.
definitely not just you. That is for sure.
Uh,
I think anyone who has competed before, or anyone who has really enjoyed the, you know, the kind of, what's the right word, academic side of
mm,
riding previously, sometimes it can be something that you kind of miss. I think when this kind of like unraveling begins of like going down all of the rabbit holes that we do in this kind of realm of horsemanship that we're in. And I think sometimes if you've had that in the past, you can kind of like yearn for it, but then almost feel guilty for wanting it because you're like,
mm,
how can I do it in the past, the only way I've ever done it has been at the expense of the horse. And
hmm.
I think it's just, again, something that will be a forever process of learning how to navigate, doing something that looks even remotely close to like normal riding, um,
Right.
and still honor our horse and honor everything that we've been learning in this journey.
That brings me to another question, actually, to get your insight on, is that, sorry, like, how do I word this? I feel like the space that I'm in now on my journey and this place that I'm at and the kind of things that I'm delving into are great. I love it. But then I look sometimes and I teach a lot of beginner students and things. And then I look back and I'm like, how do you get to the point like that you're at or that I'm at when you get to a certain skill level? You have to have these quote unquote lesson horses or these horses that teach
Mhm.
you how to be a rider.
Yeah.
And then I feel sometimes like I don't know if confusion is the right word, but it's like there are times where those horses are being asked to do things that they probably don't want to do, but
Yeah.
they are doing it at I guess, for the benefit of the rider to learn how to have a seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know. I mean, these are just the things I mull over in my head all the time. Like, but what about those horses? Or a lot of times I look at like particular people that maybe have reached this place in their journey where they're looking at the same things I'm looking at, but maybe they don't, maybe they're lacking a lot of other really important skills,
Mhm.
like how to find their center when they're on the horse. I mean, I like to talk about that a lot. Like we have to find our center like emotionally and find our center spiritually, but we also have to find our center like physically
Yeah.
to do the horses justice. Like, I mean, we need to be, I always tell my students, you have to be in control of your parts before you can expect to have any control of your horse's parts. I mean,
Yeah.
so like that's kind of where I start new students is like you got to learn how to control your parts. And I mean, we do it as the as best as we can honoring the horse. But I don't
Yeah.
know. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, I just think about how many people owe so much to these horses that taught us. I mean, all of us that taught us when we didn't know XYZ or we were learning. Like, there's just so many layers. Sorry, this may be an
True.
awfully big question, but
No, I think it's a good one. I think it's a really,
I
really good
mean, I
one.
just think I don't know. I just see a lot of people who need to learn more skill in their body, but
Yeah.
they aren't going there because they're on this piece of the journey, the whole kind of spiritual
Yeah.
piece. Like, I don't know how to marry the two sometimes, or when somebody gets to this place, but they don't already have that piece.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I
I
think
don't know. It's kind of an open-ended question.
no, it's a topic that I really love, and I think that um if we look back on in history, right? We look back at how people were taught historically. I mean, there was, of course, always there was a level of horsemanship in the wider world because horses were more ubiquitous in general. But I think if we look at, say, for example, like higher level training, that there were schoolmasters, and that
Mhm.
schoolmasters have always played such an important role in the development of horsemen and women, but in that day and age, it was primarily horsemen. Um,
Right.
but that there was such a things were taken so much more slowly in obviously not in every school, of course, but like there was a level of you didn't get to progress to that next level until you had mastered the previous level. And I think that if we look at people who are willing to go slowly as students and take the time necessary to build the foundational skills, it takes trainers like you that are willing to say you cannot expect to control their bits if you cannot control your bits, right? That
Right.
I think that if a trainer could have students that were willing to go at the pace that they needed to make progress without sacrificing anything for the horse, I think it's absolutely possible. I think that so much can be developed. It's like same with training and like developing a horse in to a stronger horse. So many people focus on
Mhm.
so many higher gaits, and so much can be developed in the
Mhm.
walk.
So true.
Lateral work being a lost art in this day and age with riding in general. Like if you can master all the lateral schools in walk, like you have so much nuance and control of your body over your body. And I'm not saying like pulling the horse, or I mean, you see this if you go to like riding schools around, it's like a shoulder in and they're like seesawing the horse in. If you can learn to maneuver the horse with your own body gently without pulling hard on the reins, without kicking them, without forcing them into a frame, if you
Mhm.
can learn to
Without tension. Yeah.
without tension, yes, totally. And if you
Yeah.
focus on that in walk, and if people could develop, obviously it's not the first thing you develop, right? You learn how to like post and all that sort of stuff.
Right, right.
But alongside that,
Mhm.
if you were able to um, learn how to influence the horse's body with your body in slower gaits, and to
Mhm.
truly master that, and also how much more connected the horse would feel. 'Cause again, we didn't I could talk on this truly forever, but like for me, a deep part of I think because so much of my communication experience has been so somatic, like an experiential and
Somatic, yeah.
feeling things within my body,
Hmm.
I feel so connected to the somatic experience of riding and the communication that happens when we can, and this I learned primarily from being like, we take all the tack away, and how do we communicate with the horse? And realizing the intrinsic communication layers that happen with the horse and how they naturally are able to like universally respond to specific communication signals from our own body, even before they've been like really trained to do it. You don't have to train them to do it. It's natural. And if we can teach students how to do that, I don't know how to, I don't have the patience to do that, but someone does. Thank you.
I do. I
Um,
do a lot of that.
to be able to, but it takes a certain type of student too, right? Which is
Hmm.
also the tough part of existing as a professional in this world is like, especially when it's in person, right? When it's in person and it's
Hmm.
like, okay, within my what's the geographical area, finding those students that are willing to go, yes, I am open to taking the time it takes for me to develop a mastery of my own body, because I think so much of it is in learning horsemanship nowadays is a mastery over the horse's body or a mastery over the horse's self. And it's not about that. If you can develop a
Hmm.
mastery over your own body and over your own self, you can speak to the horse so much more clearly. And the horses all I mean, they all appreciate that. You sit on a horse that doesn't really know much dressage, and if you can
Yes.
explore a little bit with your own body with them, they're like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, absolutely. I can give you my inside hind." like it's
Yeah.
so
I
interesting
love
to
how you're
feel.
explaining this. This is beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think that there's a possibility there that doesn't necessarily um sacrifice the horse. It's hard. And yes, there will be times where it's like obviously when you're learning, even when you're not learning, even like we're all learning, but like even when you're the
Right.
teacher, like you make mistakes and there's times you have to go like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I totally just flopped right there and I got left behind your movement and I'm sure I sat a little hard on your lumbar spine like in that moment." Like that's definitely going to happen whether you're extremely advanced or whether you're a total beginner. And I think when you are approaching all of this work with the horse as a partner in mind and allowing them a voice, giving, not just allowing, but like prioritizing their voice, that they can communicate, hey, I'm a little burnt out right now and I need to not have beginners sit on me every time. I need to be able to like retune myself and recalibrate with you. Can I do that with you? Or, hey, can I take some time going back to beginners instead of having more advanced students? Like being able to listen. I really think that if we could, again, I'm not doing this personally. I haven't put this into action, but I do think it's possible. I think, again, coming back to having a deeper understanding of their bodies, having a deeper understanding of how we
Mhm.
communicate with them, that we could navigate this in a way and honestly like get people excited about it too, because it's so much more meaningful to be like, hey, we're gonna learn how to connect with our own bodies, communicate on this energetic level with the horse. And then it's like, yeah, riding a shoulder in feels like meeting God versus like just trotting around for 45 minutes and maybe learning to pop over some cross rails. I don't know. I just feel like nowadays there's we have this opportunity as people seeking to develop as horse equestrians, as riders. Like we're not doing this for war. We're not doing this for
Right.
to keep our family alive. We're not doing this to plow the fields or, fight with some feuding tribe down the road. Like we are doing this because we want to experience communion with ourselves and with horses. And so if we're experiencing it like that, then why not take it to that level
Yeah.
from day one, from learning how to, yeah, post on the right diagonal, like, like all of
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
long-winded answer to say, I think horses can opt in to being able to, foster people in their learning. And I think that more horses would be willing to opt into that if we listened to them
Mhm.
and kind of had more of a focus like that, where we're focusing on, yeah, developing the person and not just learning to master certain skills.
Or master the horse.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we're gonna have to do a part two because I have so many more questions for you. But let's maybe I just have one final question for today, and
Sure.
that is if you were gonna give our listeners advice on how to create a more magical connection with their horse, what would you tell them?
I think that if if we can give ourselves the level of awe and wonder and love that we give to our horses, and
Mm,
we can recognize, we think about, oh, the horse is so intuitive and they can feel everything. As soon as you get into the arena, they know exactly what you're feeling and all this stuff. We also have all of that capability. We're born with that capacity to some level or another as beings with a nervous system. And so to give ourselves the level of grace and um, wonder and awe and appreciation for their sensitivity. If we could give that to ourselves, it's that forever
mm,
cycle of appreciation. If we can appreciate that within ourselves, we can appreciate that deeper within the horse, and thus appreciating it deeper for within ourselves as well. So give that to yourself and watch it blossom.
wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. And
Oh,
yeah,
you're so
hopefully we
welcome.
can schedule a part two at some point later.
Yeah. That was a blast.
What a lovely conversation we just had with Tara. I appreciated it so much to get to talk to another trainer and just ask her all these questions that I have had. Appreciate her knowledge, her wisdom, her centeredness, her words, everything. I just love Tara so much. You can find more about Tara on her website at unbridledgoddess.com. And she's also on Instagram and Facebook at Unbridled Goddess. If you'd like to join us at My Magical Horse, we would love to have you. If you are enjoying these podcasts, please like and share. Please, if you appreciate the mission that we're on to educate others about animal communication and the role that it plays in their everyday interactions with their horses, please join us and support us at My Magical Horse on the Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/My Magical Horse. And we just can't wait to see you there. Until next time, namaste, friends.